Hey everyone, this is Bitupan here. Welcome to Mindful Talks, where I invite guests to talk about their knowledge and experiences in spirituality, personal development, and health and wellness. Do you know that our ancient texts have got a lot of knowledge and wisdom? What we know today through modern science, ancient people already used to know these things. Modern science only does research. It means we are researching. We are researching the things which our ancestors already used to know. Great scientific inventions have been done in the past using the knowledge available in the Vedas. Bhagavad Gita is such a book which has got answers to everything right from the body, mind and soul to the edge of the universe. I am with a guest today who is deeply interested in doing research about science, mythology and religion. As a child, he was always obsessed with these subjects. He has deep knowledge about religion, mythology and the connection between Vedas and modern science. He is a friend of mine, Dr. Charit, who is an author, an entrepreneur, an artist, a drummer, a fitness enthusiast, a world traveler and whatnot. He keeps traveling to various countries looking for new experiences. The last time I checked, he had traveled to 33 countries already. He's a curious kind of a person. He keeps exploring things, places, religion, culture, modern technology, etc. He has tried his hands on modern shooting weapons, used huge excavators, did scuba diving, and even used to fly airplanes. He studied at New York University, and after that he moved to work in Germany and completed his doctorate. He is a full-time employee at a Fortune 500 company. He has written 6 books till now and won the Making a Difference award. His recent book is his best-selling book, Evolution Cradle: The Aryan Origin. This book is a science fiction novel which goes deep into Hindu mythology and questions the reality and imagination. It's a mixture of ancient wisdom and modern science. Let's talk to him and find out what knowledge he has gathered from his deep research and experiences. Hey Charit, welcome to the show for the second time.
Yes, exactly for the second time. Always fun to be back with you in the
Same here,
talk.
man. Great to have you because of your experiences and the kind of knowledge that you have. So I'm curious to know one thing, man. Let's dive into it. Okay. You have mentioned about airplanes and scuba diving and all in your book.
Yes.
So first of all, how did these ideas come to you? And more importantly, how did you get to know the technical aspects of these things? Like airplane is, did you actually fly by yourself?
Yes, exactly. Very good question. And I'm glad you asked that question because as you are aware, this question has come up quite a lot of times and I never had the chance to address it. So to keep it short, these are all my first-hand experiences. So these are things which I have done myself. So everything that I have written in my book, anything that's modern, that's from the current times, the technology-wise, it's all things which I have experienced by myself. So the only thing I have researched for the book is the mythological, the history part. Everything else is my first-hand experience. So yes, coming back to your question, I am a pilot. I finished my PPT a couple of years ago. It was almost like 12 years ago. I have never renewed it ever since. I was considering going back to it. But anyway, so yeah, so I did fly airplanes. So I am very familiar with all the technicalities of it. All the gauges, the instrument cluster, the sounds that it makes, the kind of pressure that you feel, the way it rocks, turbulence, everything. I'm very familiar with that, and also scuba diving. I'm sure you read the book, and the chapter Dwaraka is completely dedicated to scuba diving. It's where they explore underwater. So that chapter, the only way it was possible to describe that in such detail, especially because the characters are not talking to each other underwater, of course, they're only using hand signs, that is only possible if you have experienced it yourself. It always makes sense when it comes out from the horse's mouth instead of secondhand information of somebody else's experience. Of course you can do that, but honestly, if you want to know what it felt like when to what it feels like to walk on the moon, for example, you would not ask somebody who's read a book about Neil Armstrong. You would ask Neil Armstrong himself, provided you had the chance to. You want to know this from the person who has actually experienced it. That's what That's what makes it authentic.
I think this is
So
applicable to everything. I mean, for anything for you to explain to somebody, you should have your first-hand experience in that.
100%,
Yeah,
especially when
yeah.
it comes to literature, you're writing about it, and that's a pretty big chapter, right? And you need to know everything, what it feels like to sink to the bottom of the ocean, and what it feels like, when the pressure is getting too high, and these things you can read and you can kind of imagine, but if you have actually experienced it, your perspective is going to be very different from everybody else. And that's what the reader wants. The reader wants, when you read it, you need to feel like, okay, somebody, this author, the person who's written this, has done it himself. You need to feel that. So I highly encourage, everyone to go out there and experience as many things as possible.
Scuba
Everything.
diving is in my bucket list, and flying an aircraft is not, for obvious reason, because I don't have a license as of now. But I do not have much idea about aircrafts also. So what kind of a flight was that? I mean, was it a small aircraft, or what was it?
True. Yeah. So this is it's called the first aircraft that I flew was a Diamond 40. It's also called a Katana. So the manufacturer is Diamond, and they basically their aircrafts are private aircrafts, but they follow the fighter jets. Like the Lockheed Martin aircrafts principle. There's a canopy from the top. It's a low wing, and you have a yoke, or they call it or you can call it a joystick if you may. But they call it a yoke. It's like it's a stick instead of a steering wheel. So it's like so you have this in between your legs instead of a wheel. So there's an image of actually my perspective in Instagram in my profile. Where I'm holding that. That's where I wanted to show the difference between a Diamond and a traditional Cessna. But later I did transition to a Cessna because I just wanted to also fly traditional aircraft with a top wing and a conventional door. So I wanted to experience that. So I changed my flying school. I went to another more old school traditional school, and I flew a couple of Cessna 172.
Okay.
Analog instrument cluster, and later they had glass cockpits. But anyway, those are all the deep technical aspects of new aircrafts. But all in all, yeah, these are the two aircrafts.
But I have a non-technical question. Were you alone,
Yes.
or there was a partner with you? I mean, a guide with you?
So during training, you always have an instructor next to you.
Yeah.
But as a trainee, you are sitting in the captain's seat. You're sitting on the left side. And there's an instructor sitting on the co-pilot, on the passenger, let's call it a passenger, a co-pilot seat. So he's instructing you, but you're in command. Okay. You're in control. Well, command ultimately belongs to the instructor. So this is during the training. But then you have, you also have a solo. This is just after your theoretical exam, you have a solo. That's when you have to fly all by yourself. You're flying alone. This is like a driver's license. Usually when you're doing a driver's license, there's an instructor next to you. But in this case, at least in the school where I did my examination, there was no instructor next to me. So I had to do a solo all by myself.
Nice, man. See, I had one problem. I wouldn't say problem now. I have changed the way I look at things. But a couple of years back, what I found difficulty was managing time. Time was really an issue for me, but somehow I have changed my mindset. What I want to ask you is that while you do so many different things, how do you manage your time? And on top of that, you have written a best-selling book. How did you psychologically zone yourself into writing a book amongst all this chaos?
Yeah. It's funny. The book has a lot to do with Bhagavad Gita, right? And there's a chapter, chapter 6 in Bhagavad Gita primarily talks about self-control, mind over matter. And it's basically, your own self-control leads to, self-awareness. And it does not mean that there are things which you should not do, of course. If you really have to do them, you can do them. But there are certain choices you can make. For example, everybody does multitasking. There's no such thing as, I cannot multitask. The only thing is you're choosing different things when you're doing these different tasks. So what I like to do is, when I like to relax after during work, when I take a break or something, instead of watching I don't know, a YouTube video on something, a cat video or a dog video, I watch something historical. I watch something. It is still the same thing. I'm still watching TV. I'm still watching YouTube. But the choices you make, you're watching something where you're learning something. Right now, I'm watching a documentary about Rome, for example. It's a very long, I think, 48-hour documentary on Netflix. So you either have the choice to do that, or you have the choice to watch something which may not necessarily bring you some knowledge. So what I'm trying to say is, it's just the choices. It's the same time. Everybody has the same 24 hours,
Right.
but it's up to you to choose what you want to do and how you want to organize your day. So when I take a break, I like to zone in on one thing. I like to put the other thing, my work aside for just a short time. It doesn't have to be the whole day. Just I'm taking a break anyway during lunch or something. I have a quick lunch, and then I decide to write a few pages. Just write anything. Just consistency. Every day, a couple of pages. And then after work, I like to do some, after work or on the weekends, mostly on the weekends, where I wake up in the morning, I have my breakfast, and I either go out and do some jogging or maybe go to the gym. But right now, because of Corona, there's more time, because there are things which you normally do, which you don't do anymore. You're isolated.
Right.
So you can use this time now to do something else. Like the painting you see behind me.
Yeah, I saw that.
This is a couple of years old. This was way before Corona, but this was something I was doing during my vacation. Something where I wanted to try a new kind of art, just experiment something else. Similarly, there are people who say, "Oh, video games are very bad for you." I don't play video games anymore.
Okay.
But if you're really passionate about video games, why not choose the right kind of games? There are games which are historical. There's one game which I heard about called Kerbal Space Program or something.
I don't know. I don't have any idea about video games.
Yeah, so there are games where you can also learn from the game itself. The only thing is the choices need to be correct.
I think one way to look at it is that what is the end product that we get? What we get is entertainment, joy and entertainment. So instead of getting the joy and entertainment from a video game, you just change the source of entertainment from learning.
Yes.
Learning is also an entertainment, right?
Yeah, very true. Very true.
Yes.
Yeah, and also coming back to the chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita again, they talk a lot about these things where you can do multiple things, right? It's about how you are able to control your own brain, how you're able to program your own brain, basically, kind of, to do certain things. Could be through pranayama, for example. And if they were able to do so many different things in such a short time, we clearly know the kind of achievements they did, massive temples and
right.
great architecture. If they were able to do so many things in such a short time, we can easily do it.
True, man. Great inspiration. Yeah. So in a situation like this now, in a pandemic situation, does Bhagavad Gita also talk about health? What does it say about health and the human body?
Yeah, very good question. It does.
I'm asking because I am myself into this health and fitness industry, right? So this question is quite relevant.
Yeah. Oh yeah, very. Of course. Yeah. So a couple of things. So like I just mentioned, for example, the same chapter 6, I think even if I'm not wrong, chapter 17 also talks about nutrition. But anyway, chapter 6, it's basically it's basically Krishna telling Arjuna, so Arjuna is saying, "Oh, I don't have this control over my mind. What do I do?" And Krishna is talking about pranayama in that text. So he talks about pranayama, but what we can take out of this is, especially now the pandemic, primarily coronavirus, it's something that mostly affects the lung. Of course, it does. There are also effects on the heart, and there are some myocardial diseases, but primarily on the lung is what we need to protect. And breathing exercises are one of the best. You can see it that way. Pranayama through breathing exercises, and also at the same time you're isolated at home completely all by yourself. So you need to also keep your mind in the right place. So these breathing exercises not only are helping you strengthen your lungs, but they're also helping you strengthen your brain. your mind, you know. So there's this body mind connection.
Connection.
There's a control. And if I'm not wrong, chapter 17 again of Gita, I think it's verse 10, there's also something where he's talking about nutrition.
Okay.
You know, to eat something fresh, to eat something which is being cooked only 3 hours ago. Of course, back then they did not have the preservation techniques that we have right now. But you know, eat something fresh. Don't eat something stale. You know. So it's you know, I can look it up. I can read that out for you.
Yeah, please do.
Yamam. So these are it's basically it's very simple. It says yata yamam gatarasam puti paryushitam cha yat. So basically that's basically telling you that don't eat stale foods, don't eat you know, things which are being cooked too long ago, don't eat something which is tasteless basically. And also at the same time try to eat something regional. Try to eat, no, this is something which I'm adding to it, you know, try to eat something regional, something that comes, you know, from within your close proximity, instead of, you know, looking to food which has been imported from somewhere else, because this is food which is conditioned to your atmosphere. So it has grown to the same atmosphere that you are used to. So it's it's what best suits your own body.
Right.
That way, it's I think it's something that we can also learn. This isolation is not just for us, but it's also for the region during the pandemic. So you can look to you know, nutrition which is coming from the land around you, instead of getting something from
Bhagavad
an
Gita has answers to everything, right? Every
does.
aspect. Apart from self-control that you have taken an inspiration from Gita, what other inspirations that you have taken?
I think primarily for my book, and also, you know, something which I personally always believe in, dharma.
Okay.
You know, the most one of the most famous dialogues, let's say, or texts from the Gita, paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chadushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. This is something, you know, everybody knows. It's very famous. It's basically Krishna telling Arjuna that, you know, whenever dharma is declining and adharma is taking over, you know, I will come back, you know, every yuga I'll come back, you know, yuga after yuga, to make sure that the balance is set right again. So this is also something, even before I read the Gita, this is also something which I always believed in myself, you know, subconsciously, let's say, but in a different way. So dharma is basically balance, you know, equality. It's justice. It's all animals, all forms of life are the same. And that's also what I usually try to show in my art, you know, like the painting you're looking at behind.
Yes.
It's basically, I'm trying to show human and animal, they're the same. You know, there's an imbalance clearly right now. You know, for some reason humans, we believe that we are superior, but it's not true, right? We are nothing but an animal. It's just a social animal.
True.
So it's equality. We treat ourselves for some reason more superior than we would treat an animal. And no matter what kind of animal it is, venomous, dangerous, friendly, loyal, it doesn't matter. They're all equal. All forms of life are equal. So that's what I wanted to always show, you know, in all my art projects. I try to show that human, animal, you know, there's so many similarities. We are the same. So I try to merge both of them together.
That's a great art, man. And that he looks like you. Is that you in that picture? Are you trying to?
Yeah. So this has been done from a selfie I took of myself. I had the vision of the art, and then I had to take an image of a human, and I just wanted to, you know, use my own portrait. It's like a self-portrait or a partial self-portrait. I wanted to use myself in art. This is the first time I have done a self-portrait. All the others were other subjects, family members or somebody I know, or not necessarily. Some also maybe a picture which I saw somewhere in a newspaper article which I liked, and this is the first time I've done this. Very hesitant.
Nice, man. Okay, so I want to talk more about Bhagavad Gita because this topic is really interesting and you have great knowledge about that. Scientists have done great inventions based on the inspiration taken from Gita. And I am
Yeah.
not aware of what are those inventions, but in the last podcast, you have told about one invention, I think, about the atomic bomb. So,
Yes.
which are the other inventions you can tell us, and what kind of inspirations are they?
Yeah, so apart from nuclear energy itself, it's not just a atomic bomb, but nuclear energy. There's description about uranium-235 and how it was used not only for nuclear weapons but also to power aircrafts. Like Pushpak Vimana, for example. And Vimanas in general, they were, that was also something which was described. There's an entire Shastra, Vimana Shastra, which is dedicated to airplanes, which were used by gods of the time or beings of the time. And also, we were also talking about human fantasy, last time. Humans can only fantasize about things which they have seen. There needs to be some experience. They cannot create something out of nothing, especially the simpler beings, let's say, of the time. So they have seen something which looked uh, like an aircraft, basically like an aircraft which may have landed, taken off, and the Vimana Gopura is basically a depiction of the same thing. So that's one theory. Of course, there's no way to actually prove that, but psychologically, it makes more sense that people have described things which they have actually seen. Just the way I have described airplanes, flying an airplane, the experience of flying an airplane because I have done it. And otherwise, it's very difficult to imagine that. And besides that, there's so many things that the Gita also talks about. Mind, body, the soul, the different chakras of the body, and they are not very different from modern science. If you think about it, all the different systems that we have within our own body, it's not very different from the power sources that we have in our own body, right? And also the astronomy, they knew everything about all the planets that we are surrounded by, almost the entire universe. There was nothing that they could not answer. They had the science about the size of the planets, the distance between the planets, the shape of the planets itself, and how everything was being held together back when several even several thousand years after that. The West was still debating that Earth was flat, and it's not Earth revolving around the sun, but the sun revolving around the Earth. And then later, until Galileo, people did not believe it. Whereas, in not just in Gita, but in also the Vedas, they describe about planets and the effects of planets that are on humans, which is very true. You see certain people having an effect on a full moon day. Psychological effects on a full moon day. The gravitational pull of certain planets has an effect on you. The solar flares coming has physical effects and also mental effects. The northern lights you see near the poles, near the north and south pole. So if you're seeing physical effects, they are having also mental effects, because there are certain chemical reactions that are happening in the environment near you. And people have always associated them with something more supernatural.
Okay.
Whereas Vedas were always talking about things in a scientific way. Health, you can take Ayurveda, for example, medicine about that. There's nothing that they did not know, basically, and we are only now rediscovering these things.
Yeah, exactly. Researching these things, rediscovering, right?
Exactly.
So, which book are you currently reading, and what are you researching about?
Currently, I'm researching about time and space. Time travel,
Which is an illusion.
and
Time is an illusion, right?
that you could say that. Some people say time is just a concept. It's a relative for sure.
Hmm.
I agree completely. It's relative. Time is moving in a different pace on Earth than it would, several light years away from here in another galaxy. Of course, I completely agree that, and also time moves in a different speed than light or sound. Meaning, for example, you turn on light. This is something which took me a long time to understand this concept. turn on a light,
Hmm.
something like the light behind, and then you start moving away from the light at the same speed that the light is turning on. So for you, the light is going to be at a certain size the
Hmm.
entire duration of light away from it.
Huh.
Whereas a person standing right next to it, it's going to become brighter and brighter and brighter.
Right. Huh.
Not for you, because you're moving away faster than light. So
Huh.
that I think that's a concept which took me a long time to understand. It's also something that you'll have to really imagine for yourself being in that person's position.
No, I can understand because these things are very interesting for me. I also think that when we see the sun, we are actually seeing 8 minutes past of the sun because the light from the sun
Exactly.
takes 8 minutes. And when it comes to stars, we are actually seeing millions year old. We are seeing the past of that
Exactly.
star.
Exactly. There's also for my next book, and about wormholes and things like that, and
Oh.
how people were able to always enter Earth and leave Earth from a specific point in the Himalayas. Trying to research what is so significant about this one place.
Hmm.
Where even Mahabharata and even in Ramayana, when these gods have left Earth
Hmm.
magically somehow from a specific point in a specific place in the Himalayas, and they were able to go to this other dimension, or maybe go to another planet.
Right.
So
So that is your next book. So I want to know about, for the viewers, tell about your current, present book, your Evolution Cradle. What can
oh
we
yes,
expect from that book?
absolutely right. Yeah, so the book Evolution Cradle, I actually have it right here. So the
Hmm.
book is about basically what it says. It's about the Aryan origin. So what I deliberately did was, it says the Aryan theory behind, and theory is
Hmm.
struck out with origin.
Hmm.
And somebody was asking me the same thing, the reason for that. So there are many theories
Hmm.
of the origin of Aryans. So what I attempt to do with this book is to bring scientific evidences and scientific research to actually talk about what the origin is. How did it all start, and why is it important? Why is it important? Why is everybody trying to find the origin out about Aryans? The thing is, there were several discoveries which were made after that point,
Hmm.
and it's also about basic human evolution. How did we move? How did civilization move back from Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, all of that, to India, and all the way to South India, and even to the north, all the way up to Scandinavia, the west, north, not just the north of India, but I meant like the complete northwest, into another continent. And the reasons for very famous dictator Hitler trying to find answers in the East. Why was he trying to do that? Why did he send so many people to go and translate the Vedas and get information from them? What
Hmm.
was he trying to achieve? And clearly, he wasn't able to finish whatever he was looking for. He wasn't able to find all the answers. And then finally, now two science researchers who have come to a dead end themselves.
Hmm.
They're doing cross-species genetics experiments, and they're trying to splice two different chromosomes together and create a new organism. And they come to a dead end, and they're not able to find answers anymore. So they do the same thing pretty much, and they look for answers in the mystical East, if you may, to find answers. So they actually physically come. They meet a historian named Gita. Gita. The person's name is Gita,
Person's
inspired
name is
from
Gita. Yeah. Hmm.
Bhagavad Gita. So there's a little wordplay over there to look for answers. Whether they find the answers, and do they find only what they're looking for, or more than that, is all part of the mystery of the book. The story, the plot is basically that.
Nice, man. I'm sure viewers will love it. And I have seen the reviews on Amazon and all. People have given very good reviews about your book. So, anyways, it was great talking to you, man. Actually, we mostly spoke about Bhagavad Gita, and this is really an interesting topic for me. And
Yeah,
I know that we have a lot of wisdom in our ancient text, especially Bhagavad Gita, right?
indeed.
And yeah, I think when you come up with more such topics, we'll connect again and we'll discuss.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. We'll do that. It was really nice talking to you, Bitupan.
Same
Take
here.
care.